U of A Wildcats beat the ASU Sun Devils. Final score: Arizona Wildcats 99 to the ASU Sun Devils 61. Um, One thing that I was thinking right off the top of my head, uh, um, before I forget, is it's really nice to see Anderson and York working together. Um, they really were starting to work together in this game. Um, York didn't score so many points. I think he scored 12 points, um, and I think that was Anderson scored uh, was it 14 points or something like that. Maybe 15. I'm not quite sure. I can't remember exactly how many he scored, but it was really nice to see York and Anderson working together somewhat, because if we can get those two, you know, to work together, then I think this is going to be a pretty good team. Um, with with the 99 to 61 points, maybe it was, maybe it was just coincidence. I don't know what, but still, um, the biggest thing that the Wildcats did uh, is, well, they did a lot of really big things, but one of the things that they need to work on that I've been noticing in the last few games was 3-pointers. Um, whenever we played US, I think it was USC, before we played ASU here. USC got back into the game with making 3-pointers, and that's how they were able to get back into the game. ASU, Spite from the ASU Sun Devils, he knocked down a couple 3-pointers, and granted, they were on Simon, and Simon doesn't have a lot of minutes, doesn't play a lot of minutes for the Wildcats just yet, so he's learning, and he wasn't defending against Spite very well right there in the end, because Spite knocked down a couple 3-pointers on him. But so that's something that we really need to work on, is the 3-pointers, because the inside was fantastic. I think the points in the paint, I think for ASU were like, what was it, 14 points or 16 points in the paint, and the Arizona Wildcats had 52 points in the paint. So major difference as far as points in the paint. We had another person that had 3 turnovers for the ASU Sun Devils. Goodman. Goodman is 6'6". I think that he was having a hard game for the ASU Sun Devils. I think he was having a bad game for the ASU Sun Devils, because 3 turnovers was the most turnovers that any one player had for the ASU Sun Devils. So, and I think a few of them had 1. Blake's had 1. Holder had 1. I think Oleka had 1. So it's very small amount of turnovers, and yeah, that was pretty much it. Oleka had 15 points. He knocked down some 3-pointers. I think 3 of his 3-pointers were on York, but like I said, York and Anderson are working together somewhat, so Anderson was not getting so many so many defensive breakdowns. I think Anderson only had one defensive breakdown, and I think it was against it wasn't against Justice for the ASU Sun Devils. I can't remember exactly who Anderson had to break down against. It was a bad one. It was against Willie Atwood. He had that defensive breakdown when Willie Atwood, I think, knocked down a three-pointer on that defensive breakdown. But the getting back on point here, York, whenever he had those three defensive breakdowns against Blake's, he was trying to pass off his defensive responsibility to Anderson. So there was a switch that was occurring because Blake's was too fast, and he actually got York to pull off and to slip off and on another defender, and so Anderson was left to defend against Blake's. And Anderson is not, he's 6'9", and Blake's, I think, is 6'4", so and 6'4", Blake's just has more speed than Anderson does, and so that's why Blake's was pretty much able to dribble penetrate a few times, and that's one of the biggest things. Another thing was that we had Parker Jackson-Cartwright with 7 assists and 0 turnovers. The reason why I didn't have Parker Jackson-Cartwright, and I usually don't have him, I've been noticing I usually don't have him in my high scores, is because he didn't score that many points. Parker Jackson-Cartwright scored 8 points. I think he had a couple 3-pointers, knocked down a couple 3-pointers. He's really getting consistent on the 3-pointers. Somebody that is dependable on the 3-pointers, and that's a really, really nice thing to see. One thing that really stood out to me, another thing that really stood out to me was Dusan Ristic with 16 points. 16 points, man. That's a lot. He did really good, and he had 2 blocks, he had 1 turnover, and he had 1 assist. So he was doing. He did. I think 16 points is the highest score that I think Ristic has ever had in a game. But I could be wrong. I'm just thinking off the top of my head. Another big one was Tarzuski for the Wildcats. He had 15 rebounds. I think 4 or 5. Yeah, I think 5 of those rebounds were offensive. So that was really cool. It's nice to see Tarzuski. I think he had a couple blocks too, a couple monster blocks. So it was really nice to see Tarzuski taking authority down there in the key and kind of taking care of business. So the ASU Sun Devils they could not handle inside the key, inside the block. They just couldn't. Their guys were too small. I think they had one guy that was 6'10". It wasn't. Was it Oleka? No, Oleka I think was 6'7". So I can't think of the guy that was 6'10". Jacobson. I think Jacobson was the one that was 6'10". So they don't. ASU didn't have a whole lot of options as far as big guys. I mean, the U of A has. We have Ristic, and then we have Tarczewski, both 7-footers, and so, ASU Sun Devils didn't really have a 7-footer as far as I could see. Let's see. Yeah, Allen did. He did very well. Didn't have a whole lot of defensive breakdowns, so he did really nicely. A lot of the defensive breakdowns were the guards they were on ball screens, and so the guards couldn't keep up, and so they were brushed off on probably a post player, like Oleka, Jacobson, other I think Blake's, Blake's and Blake's and not well, and Atwood worked a little bit together, but Blake's and Holder were working together quite well as far as doing this setting up picks, because they were getting assists and pushing off on each other, and that was one thing that they were helping each other out with, and so. But the thing about it is ASU didn't have a lot of assists. They were not playing as much team ball as they should have, and the amount of assists, it shows up when your guys are making shots, and ASU could not make a shot in this game. They just had a really hard time. ASU only scored 24 points in the first half, and I think they scored, was it 37 in the second half, and the Arizona Wildcats had 61 points in the second half. So huge difference. But the assists were, I think ASU had 7 assists in total, and I think the Wildcats had like 17 or 19 assists in the game, so major difference. So I would say that ASU was not playing as much team ball. So the Arizona Wildcats beat the ASU Sun Devils. The final score: Arizona Wildcats 99 to the ASU Sun Devils 61.